names that are completely unintelligible of businesses selling the same product that are probably from the same, manufacturing plant somewhere in China. We didn't want to be a part of that. It's not really fulfilling. So after discussing a little bit more, we decided that we wanted to come up with a product or whatever we're selling. It had to be something that we were interested in, that we enjoyed making, and that brought like a genuine value to the customer, whoever was going to be buying it. And within all of that, our goal with the company, what we decided on was this company had to be something that we were going to have fun doing together and we could learn new skills with. So that was kind of the base groundwork for what Ready Rifleman needed to be. And that was kind of our base goals. So with that, we still didn't have a product. We were looking around at what was out there, looking for ways to innovate or build something new. And eventually, my brother was like, you know what? I want to make side armor plate caps for a armor plate carrier. And I was like, do that. That sounds awesome. And you know what? And this was something that he just wanted for himself. I was like, that's going to be our first product. We can make these, maybe make them better than what's on the market or cheaper than what's on the market. And this will be our first product. That was kind of the first inspiration. And then we got to the point where we had to learn how to sew because that's not something either of us had ever done before. We've interacted with, tactical gear and stuff a lot, just, through our own interests in firearms and airsoft and growing up, but never actually on the sewing side, the manufacturing side. So where do you start? Fortunately, our mother is into sewing. Now, she's more into like quilting than sewing tactical gear, but she had that base level of knowledge and, had some sewing machines. She likes to collect sewing machines. So she had some like home grade sewing machines that we were able to take and work with and take that base level of knowledge and start working somewhere and get a product made. So that was pretty much the start of it. That's all come together over the past year and a half and really more intentionally over the past 8 months. And that's starting with that side armor plate caps, which is a product that already exists, and we kind of learned a lot, and we learned how to create those, do the nylon sewing and create a product for a design for what we wanted to do, and take that base level of knowledge that we had and take the next steps to create other gear that we personally wanted, and how to go from, oh, this would be neat if someone made this, to we made this, we designed this, we sewed it, and now we use it in our day-to-day lives. So that's kind of the basics. All that has led up to most recently this past weekend at the SOE party at Special Operations Equipment in Camden, Tennessee. We were able to attend there as vendors and have our first physical table set up selling items. So it was a really great experience. And if you'd asked me if I thought a year and a half ago, if I thought we would wind up at this place in this time frame, I would have said, no way, not going to happen. I don't even know what steps to take to start down that path. So really excited to be here, and excited to be here on this show. Something that's come from taking those steps and taking kind of those leaps and saying yes to the opportunities that have arisen.
Okay, so one of the things I noticed when we were just chatting at the SOE party, like you came to Self-Reliance Festival in April, and so you were already on the path towards I'm starting a thing at that point. And then you talked to John Willis, right?
Mm-hmm.
How'd that conversation go? Because you're kind of in competition with him.
Yeah, and that's something that's been really interesting. So to preface that, when my brother and I went to SRF back in April, we didn't go as like Ready Rifleman. Like the business was something that we were doing, and it existed, but we weren't thinking about that. We were going to SRF. It was like, oh, we're interested in what's going on here, just personally. So let's go. And both of us individually had watched a bunch of John's content. My brother watched a bunch of the sewing videos because there's some really great instructional videos out there. And I watched a lot of John's other content and kind of the business advice that he has. So, that was kind of what led us to Self-Reliance Festival, but it was just because we were personally interested in that, not because it was like, oh man, I got to go there and meet John Willis and tell him what we're doing. But we went to to SRF, and we just brought in the course of walking around talking to people, because even outside of John, everybody at SRF, it seems, is an entrepreneur or has their own small business or has something that they're doing. So there was just a crazy amount of information just around talking to everyone. But we ran into John, and like we were going into the building as he was coming out, and just said, "Oh, hi, John. Thanks for for being here. Thanks for all your videos." Just had a couple questions that came to mind about sewing machines. My brother wanted to ask some questions about what equipment John was using, and I asked a couple questions about just business in general. So he answered our questions, and he was like, "You know what? Follow me, guys." So he took us back to the podcast room, and for the next hour and a half, we got to ask just all of our questions to John, and it was a surreal experience, really. Haven't seen that podcast room, in so many shows, but being there and just being able to ask somebody who has started this business, has successfully run this business for a long time, all of those questions that it's available online somewhere at some point, but being able to say, this is something that I've identified that we're going to have to overcome. How did you overcome it? What are your suggestions for this? And with that, we make tactical gear, and John makes tactical gear. That is what SOE does. And that came up briefly, and it was really interesting to see how John interacted with us in that, because he's got this huge thing going on, and we're very like microscopic in comparison. But there was never any sense of, okay, this is a competitive thing. Every conversation that I've had with John, he is looking to give legitimate advice and help build people up who want to do something, who want to change what they're doing or start some business. And that's just a really, really cool environment to get to engage in and to get to be part of, especially as such a small business. And really that encounter was a huge motivator and a huge inspiration back towards the beginning of this year, and really led to a lot of inspiration that we were able to carry forward with the business leading up to this past SOE party, where we had we collected all of our all of our products and had everything in place where we could go and attend as vendors this time.
Yeah, did he stop at your table and check out your stuff?
He did. Yep, he did. And we got to ask some more questions about, okay, we're having trouble, with this particular, aspect of sewing. The tension's not working out right. He's like, oh yeah, simple fix. And it's really cool to have a knowledge base like that available, because when you're starting this stuff out, there's a lot that you don't know, and you don't know what you don't know. And that can make it really difficult when you don't even know what to, type into Google to research. Until you've encountered those problems, you don't even know they're problems sometimes.
Yeah, it's 100% true. I like how he approaches other people who do tactical gear, who are like genuine like you are. He's just like, this is how you do it, because he knows it's not like you're out to put him out of business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It does not hurt him at all to share that knowledge. But
and I think his business model is really, really cool. I mean, it kind of, my brother and I encountered this in the beginning when we were looking at, okay, what are we going to do? What are we going to sell? What's our product, right? One of the things that we thought about originally was like, okay, we'll just sell gear, right? We'll retail gear that other people have made, and we can order it super cheap from AliExpress or whatever, and it was like there's no interest in that when we really got down to it, because we're selling you're selling junk that somebody else made and just taking a little bit off the top. It's like John's standard of production is incredibly high, right? And that's the market that he's playing to, and I think that's really admirable. And I think that's something that's really been an inspiration, something for us to strive to, to meet that that aspiration.
Yeah, it's totally true. Okay, so you started with the design of a visor. Like, tell me the advent of that.
Yeah. So our main product, the product that we kind of debuted here at this past SOE party, is our visor micro rig. And initially, we didn't set out to make a visor micro rig. We set out to make a sun visor, storage panel to hold, your pens.
I'm going to time out you for a second. For those listening to my podcast who don't know what a micro rig is, what's a micro rig?
A micro rig, it's a small chest carrier for carrying magazines for rifle shooting. Yeah. So it's a piece of tactical gear.
Yeah. So The idea is if you're needing to use multiple magazines in your rifle, you have them right there on the micro rig next to your body. A
Mhm.
visor. So when they say visor micro rig, guys, they mean it like clips onto your car visor.
Yep, yep. So you got your sun visor in your car, that you can put down and move around. And there's a lot of things out there for holding pins and whatever you want in those. And that's something I had one of those in my car. My brother had one of those in his car. But we started thinking, okay, how can we improve this design? Right? You can go buy this thing. You can buy a visor cover to hold your pins for $15 or whatever. But how can we improve it, tailor it to what we want it to be, and change, to make it more customized, more specific to our context. And from that, we started there and iterated out. We started with, okay, we have a sun visor panel, and you can clip pins on it. Cool, but not really new, not really innovative. But it was something that we used. I still have our first prototype in my truck right now. It lives there. And we got to a point where we were working on some other gear. I have one here. So we're working on a magazine holder for for a rifle magazine that you could attach in your car. It's got Velcro on the back, and typically on the underside of truck seats is a Velcro type material that Velcro will adhere to. We're thinking, okay, wouldn't it be cool if you could have magazines that you wanted to carry and or tools or other things, and stick them underneath your seat and have them live there out of the way until you needed them. And so we started with that. And then at some point we had the idea, well, wouldn't it be cool if you could have that same thing, have a piece that connects with that system to turn it into a rig, a micro rig to carry that stuff if you needed to leave your vehicle. And then at some point the connection was made. Okay, well, a good place to store that would be on your visor. It's up, it's out of the way. It's not something that's going to be in the way when you're moving bags in and out of your truck and using it in day-to-day life. But you have that capability then to convert that into this tool that you might need at some point. And so that was kind of the general thought process to get to that point. And from there, we were able to start iterating in designs and look at the typical way that tactical gear is made and how that works and how that doesn't work for this scenario, and come up with our own attachment system that allows the connection between these accessory parts for storage and the micro rig itself.
Yep. So just practicality speaking, how would I, Nicole Sauce, work with that micro rig in my truck?
So at the very basic level, it sits on your visor and it holds pins. I mean, 99% of the time, that's what it does in my car, right? It lives there. I got my sunglasses clipped in there. I've got my, all my Sharpies. I got like 15 Sharpies that I carry with me all the time. They live in there, and it doesn't take up any additional room. And then under the seat, you've got storage for, and there's other additional items that we have for storage, like a set of straps that's connected to Velcro, and I use that to hold like a tire iron under my seat. It keeps it up out of the way. But the idea is that all of this equipment that you could use, and especially in the preparedness space, right? There's a lot. The preparedness and firearms communities are pretty closely tied. And people just want to have firearms with them, right? Or if you live out rurally, right, it's typically something you want to have accessible in a time when you might need it to have a firearm. And the ability to have the equipment to utilize that efficiently on hand all the time where it doesn't take up space, that was the goal. Because if somebody, there are micro rigs that exist, right? There's tactical gear that exists out there. But for my brother and I, we wanted to have a solution where I didn't always have to think, okay, I'm going to the car. I'm going to be going out camping for the weekend or whatever. So I'm going to go get this other bag and this other bag and this other rig and load all that into the car. Instead, it just sits there all the time. So you can load up whatever equipment or gear that you want in this system, and it lives under your seat. It lives, in your car all the time in kind of this unutilized space until you need it or want to use it.
Yeah. So basically, guys, I'd be driving around and my visor would be holding my pen and my sunglasses and my extra set of reading glasses because I always break them when I'm on the road. And so I always have to bring two. And that completely did happen last week. And I was walking around with tape on my glasses last weekend because I broke them. And that's all just useful stuff in your car. It's tucked up out of the way. Under your seat, you've got magazines or whatever else you'd want to carry in a micro rig. And then if I'm like, you know what? I need to wear this chest rig and I need to go get some stuff done. It's like pull it out, put it on, and you're done. And
Yep.
it's not just like sitting there looking like something to get stolen out of the back of my car, right? And I know for me in a truck in particular, although I have a back seat, I don't have a shell cover, and so space is at a premium in that, compared to what my SUV, where I could just, you could be completely irresponsible with your organization in the SUV.
Yep.
Just
And
toss stuff
that's
in there, but I don't have that anymore. So
that's one of the things that I encounter every day. I've got this truck and it seems like there's a lot of space in it, but I always have stuff completely loaded down. The back seat is always completely full. The passenger seat's normally completely full of stuff. But there is, this unutilized space in there. As long as you have a way to utilize that, I've found that I can carry the stuff that I would like to have with me. The probability that I might have to use it is low, but the consequence if I don't have it is potentially very high. So being able to transport that in a way that doesn't cut into my valuable backseat truck space, I find that to be very beneficial. And that goes back to kind of our design ethos in this stuff. A lot of a lot of things that we've designed, me and my brother have designed, it came about because either we thought, man, wouldn't it be nice if we could have this and use this in our daily lives? Our friends had a suggestion. They said, it would be nice if somebody made this, but I haven't been able to find it. So that's another additional added benefit is everything that we've made we use on a pretty much daily basis. So it's been nice to get that market research from ourselves and be able to design and iterate based on our personal experience of what we made.
So did this start as a side hustle pretty much while doing a
Absolutely.
full-time job?
Absolutely.
Are
Yep.
you still doing a full-time job?
I currently am. I'm currently in the process of changing jobs, actually.
Mhm.
Um, and this is with our goal of having fun and learning new skills, being that with that's as the primary goal. Um, for us personally and where we are, I think that's it's a very good space for us because we're able to engage with this in a way that's not, that's enjoyable and we don't feel the pressure of, this has to succeed today or I'm not going to eat tomorrow. And it's also been interesting to see how we've been able to engage with this has changed over the past year and a half. Because at the beginning, it was completely just a thought experiment. It was okay, if we were going to do this, what would it be, right? And now it's come to a place where we're actually putting out gear and we're putting out we have the systems in place to design and create these things and ship out products. So it's been interesting to personally see how we've been able to change how we're engaging with it. And now that we have the base level set up, have the LLC, have the website, have all this stuff, it's easy to grow as there are opportunities for that and capacity for that. Because if you don't have those systems in place, you're not going to be able to seize those opportunities.
One of the things a lot of people run into at this point in their business and a little sooner is, I have the thing. How do I reach the people
Hmm.
so they know the thing exists? So how have you been addressing that problem?
Absolutely. That is exactly where we are at right now. We've gotten to a point where we have a product that it's fairly niche in the consumer base that we're targeting to. So how do we show the people who will want to buy this that we have this? And everything that I've heard, all my research I've been doing for small business is social media. Social media is where you have to be. That's where your marketing is. That's where you're going to get eyeballs on your product. And that's the next step for us, right? That's the next thing that needs to get done, the next skill that needs to get learned. And honestly, that's a very unnatural space for me to operate in because I don't like putting out social media. I don't like having my face out there. I don't like being out in front of people. But that's a skill, that's a skill that can be learned. And the next step in this is to learn that skill. So as far as getting eyeballs on the product, I think the next step is Instagram, YouTube, start putting out an information product or entertainment product that people will want to see, and then from there direct them to the actual products that you're selling.
So you're doing it right now, though.
Hmm.
Yep. Here you
And
are. So
that
then I'm
was
like, hey, you want to jump on my show with no preparation at all? He's like, sure.
that was a pretty big jump. Honestly, it's a huge opportunity to be here, and I really, really appreciate it. But when you said, you asked me back last weekend at the SOE party, um, my initial reaction was like, "Oh no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be out in front of people." But fortunately, I've had enough experience and talked to enough people in entrepreneurship and small business where I know that your reaction has to be yes, yes, I'll do that, and then I'll figure out how I'm going to do that. Because by seizing those opportunities as they arise, you will, you'll be able to open up more opportunities in the future. If somebody's presents you an opportunity and you say no, you're probably not going to get that opportunity again. You're probably not going to have that open to you in the future. So so this is a huge opportunity, and I really, really appreciate being able to be here on the show. Even though earlier today I was thinking through, man, I don't even really know what I'm going to say.
Yeah, that's not a problem with me. I'll just keep asking you questions till you talk. Like it is something I'm pretty good at, is keeping people talking, but you're fine. You're very prepared for this and able to explain what's up. So you say that it's not natural for you to be on social media. Have you set up your social media yet?
Yep. So we're on Instagram at Ready Rifleman and also YouTube. There's not very much content there right now. Back in April, immediately after SRF, I was working really hard to put out a video a day on the YouTube. And it's really, really difficult running social media, especially having never really, I've consumed a fair amount of social media, but never really produced anything. And it's not a natural thing for me. It takes a lot of thought and even just being comfortable, putting a video of me out there. And I think the first video that I shot, it was just like, hey, this is Ready Rifleman. I did something like 20 or 30 takes on like a 30-second video. It's like, it's terrible. It's all bad. There's nothing good about this. But it's a skill. And I think we got to a point managing that social media where it's taking a lot of time and effort to not really put out much product with that. So we've kind of taken a step back with that and focused on our products, our physical products, and what we're selling. And now that that's in a place where we're really proud of what we have, it's come back around that yes, social media is in fact the next step, and we really need to focus on learning that and making that happen. So that's the next focal point moving forward.
Do you listen to Jack Spirko of their survival podcast at all?
I've heard a little bit of Jack Spirko, but not an overly large amount.
He did an initiative with a social media tool called Noster, which is a decentralized protocol, kind of like email has a protocol, or HTTP is a protocol on the internet, right? And the cool thing about it is you own your social media, and if whatever platform you're using tells you to pound sand, you still have it. It's like they can choose not to look at you, but you can just go somewhere else, and it's all still there. You don't lose anything, like all your pictures, everything's still there. Unless you've chosen a picture host that goes out of business, but that's a different story. And like most weird, hard to use emerging social media platforms that, like, I think Noster has a good chance of being a really good replacement for the situation we have now. And so I'm all in on it. But like most of those things, when you set up your account there and you get it all going, you're like, okay, now what do I do? Not much going on here. Lots of guys talking about Bitcoin, and like, I'm super interested in Bitcoin, but not that interested in Bitcoin. And so he started an initiative where it was called the Grow Noster Initiative. And what you do is every day you go in and you post 5 pieces of content, and it could be sharing a news article you thought was interesting, reposting somebody else's, putting a picture of your cup of coffee this morning, like whatever. I had a random thought. This is an interesting quote I read. Follow 5 people and leave 5 comments that are not just like, hey, but you've read somebody's thing and you respond to it. You do that every day. And the idea is you don't spend a lot of time making the video about your rig for the content. You just go in and do it. If you haven't been super comfortable with social media, it might be worth doing something like that with your profiles on Instagram, or you like choose one
Hmm.
and see what happens. Because what I find happens when you do that is people respond to you, and then you start talking to them, right? And then you start seeing, okay, this works, that doesn't work, this is dumb, that's cool. Oh, I spelled a word wrong, and now it will be there for the rest of my life, or like whatever it is.
Yeah.
They like it when I do videos of coffee coming out of the thing. Um, and it's a genuine social interaction instead of like forcing yourself to do a thing that's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that helps, but I do know that like if you do that for 1 month
Hmm.
on one platform, then you're going to be a lot more comfortable with that platform, and then you can observe like what works on social media. Because the other thing is some people go on social media and they're like sell, 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 sell. Everything they say is sell.
Hmm.
And that's not what I think works on social media. I look at, we have there's there are people in our network who are very good on Instagram, and what they're doing is showing videos of how they're doing their things. And occasionally it's like, and you can buy my thing.
Yeah.
It's not just like I make tea, buy the tea, buy the tea, buy the tea sort of thing. So
Yeah. And it's, thinking about, profiles and things that I follow on social media, what I enjoy, consuming is the stuff where it's not about the product, it's about, this project or this thing that's going on. And that's like the cool stuff that's happening. And I get entertainment and value out of that. And then also, being able to support them by buying a product. So, so yeah, I mean, and the other thing that's pretty intimidating with that is there's so much social media out there. There's, Instagram, there's YouTube, there's, X and Twitter, and there's all these different ways to engage. And looking at it from the start, it's like, oh my gosh, which one do you choose? So I think it's at this point it's very much a pick one, start it. And that's how honestly a lot of starting this business has been, right? It's pick one thing and go do that, and either you'll succeed or you won't, but either way you're going to learn, and then you'll be able to take the next step and take the next step and get to the next checkpoint, so that when an opportunity arises, you have, you're far enough along to be able to capitalize on it. And I guess going on that, when my brother and I had the opportunity to talk to John at, back in April, um, we didn't have a lot. I mean, we didn't even have business cards, right? And looking back now, it's like, oh, that rookie mistake. But we hardly had, the only products we had with us were like our everyday carry stuff that we always carried with us. That's what we had to show. But we had that, right? We didn't have a working website. We just had a Etsy page at that point. But we had enough to prove we're doing this. We're not just thinking about this. We're doing this. And that was enough to give us the legitimacy, to talk to John and to ask those questions and to get to the next step. Have that inspiration to go from there, build a website, get business cards, right? Start building those other aspects of the business to get to that next level, up until the point where we had our vending table, this past SOE party, and were it not for those individual steps all along, you can't sit down and do that in a day. I know because I've tried. You get to a point where like, man, okay, now I got to figure out how to do all of my tax stuff today, and you don't get very far. But as long as you can make a step or two steps, over a longer period of time, you'll get a lot farther in the long run. Although I will say something that I have learned, another important thing that I've learned is there are days where you are inspired and there are days where you are not. And when you are inspired, you have to go as far as you can with that inspiration. It's so much more fun on a good day to sit down and really start checking things off your checklist, and get that website set up and start creating those pages while you're inspired to do that, because you're going to have to do it sooner or later, and there's going to be a day where you don't feel like it, and if you put it off long enough, it's undoubted that the day you don't feel like it will be the day that you absolutely have to get that done.
yeah, that's 100% true. I find that also because I also manufacture a thing. When I'm in my zone roasting, they turn out great. And I will get to a point where all of a sudden I'm not in the zone. Like I'm tired, need to go for a walk or I don't know what. And that roast inevitably is the one I'm throwing in the compost bin because I was distracted about something or who knows. Like that just happened to me before walking in here. My last order of the day that needed to go out, and I was like, I'll get it done. I have 15 minutes, so I can do this. I go out there, pour the beans in my grinder, grind them, seal the bags, look at the thing, and it's whole bean coffee. And I'm like, well, that's not going out right now. I'm going to be re-roasting that because I was like, I'm going to push through this thing when I should be going on a walk because I usually go on a walk before having these shows. So, but Christmas roasting season for me, I'm just trying to get as many out as quickly as possible because you don't know what the post service is going to do with your stuff at this point. So it's always fun. But inspiration, when you do have the inspiration, ride the wave as far as you can. And you can even, like, I find I get clusters of ideas for videos and I'll be shooting like 5 videos in one day and then nothing. But you have 5 days of videos at that point if you're doing one a day. And the other thing is when you commit to a schedule, it doesn't have to be a video every day. It can be a video a week or whatever.
Yeah.
That's what Toolman Tim did at the beginning of his YouTube channel is he committed to 1 video a week. And he did that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I mentioned back in April, right after SRF, I committed to 1 video a day, 1 YouTube short a day. And I got through, I don't know, maybe a month. And it was all right. It was all right. I learned a lot. I learned a whole lot, even in that short amount of time. But there were times where it was like, getting late. And I was like, I haven't even thought about what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk about the multi-tool in my pocket today. This is what I like about it. And, I don't think that's my greatest content, having a video every day, but especially at the beginning, building that routine and building that, just getting comfortable making a video and going from, I have this idea, just shoot it, just make it. Because every time I would sit down and think about making a longer form video, and I have a longer form video that I shot, and it's terrible because I way overthought it. I put way too much time into trying to create what I had in my mind's eye of what a good video is when I don't have any of the skill set yet to back that up. And I'm a lot more capable of making, a 30-second video about the multi-tool that I carry in my pocket. I can do that competently. So I got to keep working on that before I, shoot too high and then just get disappointed when I'm not able to have, super high production quality yet.
Well, that's what Brandl's for.
Yeah. And he seems like he's got some really, really impressive stuff out there. And even actually that's going kind of back to just the different events at SOE in general. My brother and I have been to 3 of them now, 1 SRF and then 2 of the parties. Being able to talk to him and talk to everybody else there, it's super inspiring, but there's such a broad scope of what people are doing and what skill sets they have and how they build their businesses or what they're working on in their businesses. And having those resources all available in one place is such an incredible networking opportunity for somebody who's looking to start their own business. And I don't think that's exactly what, going to the first SRF that we went to, that wasn't at all what we had in mind, right? It was like, we're going to learn about, water purification systems, right? We're going to learn about, this self-reliance stuff and not necessarily entrepreneurship stuff. But there was just as much, just at any event I've been to there's so much entrepreneurial information, and people are so nice. They're just waiting to be asked. It's a really cool networking opportunity.
That's something that it's hard to explain for any event that I host is that, yeah, I'm having this really cool permaculture guy do a thing at my spring workshop. And you totally don't want to miss that. But also it's the people you talk to at the workshop that are going to be the people who you rely on when you leave and you need an intellectual property lawyer to help you with something. And we have one there, or whatever it is. You're going to not even know when you're talking to the person, you're like, wow, I didn't know that was a thing. And then you go home and you're like, I need that thing.
Yeah.
And it's
Yep.
because I met that person. And that's the thing. That's one of the two things about the network I really like. The other thing about the network I like that is just sort of this wider world is that the people we hang out with are doers and
Hmm.
they're proactive, and so there's a whole lot less drama. There is always some drama, but there's a whole lot less of the kind of group dynamic drama that you run into in a lot of networks or communities because people are just busy doing stuff.
Hmm. Yeah.
But they're there to help you if you need help, but they're not gonna like baby you.
Yeah. Yeah, and people there are speaking from experience. Most people are speaking from, I did this and this is how I did it, right? It might not be 100% directly applicable to what you're doing, but you know that at the very least they did it and it worked for them. Or they did it and it didn't work for them. So, it didn't work for them, so you can not follow that path, right? You'll have some information there. Um and it means a lot more being able to physically talk to someone and hear their story, hear how they went about something, rather than hear it from somebody on YouTube, right? There's a lot of benefit that can be gained from that, but it's different. It's not it's good information, but it's not inspiring, right? It doesn't get me excited when I'm like, okay, this is how I set up Squarespace for a website. But hearing somebody talk about how they set up their website, that is inspiring to me, right? And I can take that energy and then go start to do that myself.
Yeah, which is a good thing. Speaking of Squarespace and your shopping cart, how's that going?
So we're working on moving into our Squares. So up until now, all of our sales have been done through Etsy, right? That's where we started, just microscopic level, right? That's where we started because it's super easy to set up and sell through Etsy. It's expensive, they take their share. You're competing with a lot of different things, and you're not just competing with what's in your niche category. You're competing with that and everything else that's vying for attention for somebody who's browsing on Etsy. And there's a lot. There's a lot out there. So we're currently working on transitioning from an Etsy-based, you know, sales model to something that's hosted on our website. So still making progress on that. That is, I think that in conjunction with focusing on marketing and working on our marketing strategy are kind of the two parallel paths that we're pursuing right now. Which, interestingly, another thing on Etsy that Etsy provides is built-in marketing. Right, you can set however much money you're going to spend and have your posts boosted, and it'll work to get more eyes on your products, but we haven't had a huge amount of success with that. We haven't spent a huge amount of money on it either, but for being our size and kind of how niche our market is, we haven't had a lot of value come back from the Etsy based marketing. And so it's kind of got to the point where we're paying a lot to have them host a service that we don't really need. We're not getting the full amount of benefit from what they offer, so it's time to change to something else.
Well, and who's most likely to buy your products? Like, what does that person look like?
I think it looks a lot like people like me and my brother, right? Interested in self-reliance and preparedness, interested in firearms, outdoors stuff, kind of more, less, I think, of what you think about when you think Etsy, right? Etsy is more, in my mind at least, handmade crafts, right? You got clothing, jewelry, not exactly a huge amount of crossover between tactical gear and handmade crafts, right? There's some stuff there, and there's a lot of other there's other things in this space in our kind of niche, tactical gear space on Etsy. But what I've noticed is those companies, that's something that they're also doing. They're also on Etsy. They're not on Etsy and also somewhere else, right? It's not their focus. It's just something to the side that they can have running concurrently, for relatively inexpensively, while their main push, their main focus, and the main sales are through other means.
Yeah, and building your following somewhere like Facebook or Instagram or both of them, you then have a profile of who likes you, which is a profile of who to boost posts too that are advertisements to get the word out a little bit more. I know that in my experience with Self-Reliance Festival, it took a while for the social following, which for Self-Reliance Festival is not large, right? For that to refine down to where it was leverageable into advertising. Before that, we would target profiles like other people who we think have followers like us. But like that's a whole, like the advertising on social media is a whole nother thing. Right.
Yeah. And I've just barely begun to dip my feet into that. And the more I look, the more it's obvious that this is one of those scenarios where I'm sure I can research it and learn everything about it, and I still probably won't do it until I just start acting and then backfill that information. And that's another lesson that I've learned, over the past year and a half. There's a lot of times where you just need to jump in. You really just need to jump in and then figure it out. And even that in and of itself, that is a skill. The more times you say, I've learned everything that I'm going to learn until I start doing it, and then you start doing it, the 10th time that you start something, anything that you just start a project, you're going to be better than the first project you decide, okay, like I'm going to start YouTube now. And it gets easier, even just mentally, it gets easier to jump into that next project once you've done it a lot.
Yeah. And sometimes you start the project and you're like, I feel like I'm in outer space right now. And then it's the frog I eat when I'm in one of those and I know I need to do it. That's what I call eating a frog. It's the frog I eat every morning first thing. I'm going to spend half an hour on this stupid thing I don't want to learn how to use that's frustrating and the user interface is stupid or whatever my attitude problem is about it. And usually a week or two of that on a new thing and it finally clicks and I understand what's happening. And then I'm like, okay, now I can do the thing with the stuff. That's and there's always something like that, like with AI tools out there now, which is sort of a way to accelerate your marketing. That's a whole nother. You just have to play with them and have weird interactions until you figure it out. Basically, do you have an email list right now where you email your customers?
I think we've got 3 people on the email list.
Cool.
So,
do you have a sign up on your website? Let's see. Oh, there
I
it
believe
is.
there is. Yep, down at the bottom, and that's another tool that I'm aware of its existence, but we haven't really leveraged that at all.
Yeah, that's where AI can actually help you a lot. Now you have 4 people on your list.
All right. And that's something that I've heard, John Willis talk about on some of his lives, and his business advice is, how they leverage email lists and text lists and those different more direct, advertising tools, because, that is, there's kind of the social media, showing to new people, trying to get new eyes on, and then there's targeted marketing to, okay, these are our customers, these are our existing customers or our potential customers who at least have looked at us. How do we convert that to sales? So that's one of the kind of the and also figure out how to send how to put that together and really leverage that.
Well, I mean, sending the emails built in on your Squarespace. So it's how often do you want to send it? What are you going to say?
Yeah.
That's all you have to figure out.
Yeah. Well, and also create whatever it is that we want to say. And from that, something that I've done a little bit is we've got a blog post on the website as well. I think there's 2 entries there, just general, just advice, things that I've learned and discovered throughout the process of, building this business and, just living life. But information that I've been able to put together, I think is, I would have really, you write the advice that you wish you got, right? But things that I would have really found a lot of value in at various points throughout my life. And that's to the degree that, I'm comfortable creating content. I found that that's something that I'm really comfortable creating that content. I can sit down and type out a blog post way easier than I can sit down and create, a video about myself, even if it's the same, the exact same content. I'm just more comfortable typing it out rather than creating the video about it. So that's something that, I want to explore. I think there's a lot more engagement from what I've seen in, in Instagram and YouTube rather than a blog post, because nobody really blogs anymore, right? That's kind of a more archaic, thing. You're not getting a whole lot of people out there searching for a blog on a specific topic. Once you've located it, maybe it's something that you'll, or a newsletter, I think is probably a good way to distribute that. Once you've located it, I think people are probably willing to, consume that. But I don't think I've ever gone out of my way to find a blog to read,
It's interesting that you like to write things and you have an email list and you're not sure what to send your email list.
It does seem like that's kind of lining up to be a
I think
little
you
bit
just
more
said that in your
little
out loud
clear,
voice.
a little more clear on what the next steps there are.
Yeah. That's another one where overthinking.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can refine your marketing emails with lots of strategy and all sorts of other things, but when your email list is 4 people,
Mm-hmm.
just figure out what your schedule is and say something.
Yeah, there's not too much risk of alienating people at that
Yeah,
point.
it's like, what are you gonna do? Piss me off?
Yep.
You will piss me off if you email me all the time, though. That's true. But other people aren't that way. Like John Bush sends an email to his whole list every single day.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much. And he's like, if they don't like it, they don't like me. That's his philosophy. So, and you'll find that style as you get into that thing. Okay, we have a question here from Travis. Are ideas easier to come by for products, or are the ideas the hard part of doing what you do?
Yeah, ideas. I mean, to an extent, ideas are the easiest part. I mean, an idea at the idea form they're free. They're free, and they're also basically, worthless. There's no monetary value in an idea for the most part. It's the execution that gives the idea value. Because I have great ideas all the time, right? All day, every day, I'm having all these awesome ideas. Now, whether they're really marketable or if they're
truly
really
awesome,
worth executing, yeah, they're truly awesome, right? That depends on the execution that they get, right? Because an idea will start as an idea and it will die as an idea unless you do something about it. And not every idea is worth pursuing, right? Some things take more time, more effort, more skills, more money to bring to fruition, and maybe they're not worth that or not worth that at this moment. And other ideas are super easy to do, right? Like typing up a blog post. I could type up a blog post right now and email it out, and that's probably worth doing for the amount of effort that it is and the amount of return that it'll have. Yeah, that's worth it. But I'm not going to go make a feature-length film on, the visor micro rig that we created and how it started and where it's at, because it's not worth it, right? But it's an idea. So I haven't, between me and my brother, we're fairly creative guys. And I don't think we've had a lot of difficulty coming up with ideas for products. And also to the extent that we have a great, support network, and we know a lot of people in a similar space, we can always reach out to them for ideas. I think that's something else that makes it, easy to create things, is being in a group and a network where you're all, similarly inspired, and you also have, similar interests, right? Because then you can bounce ideas off of each other and get through the iteration process of, I have this basic idea. How do we turn that into something that is not just an okay idea, but a great idea and worth executing on? So
cool. Okay, well, if people want to connect with you and join your email list so you have 5 people on it, how do they do that?
Yep. So you can go
your email
to
list that just started a new campaign this week.
the new greatest email list on the internet. So you can find us at readyrifleman.com. We also have an Etsy store that is linked from there. You can email me at contact@readyrifleman.com with any questions or other information that you want. There's also our Instagram account, Ready Rifleman, as well as our YouTube account, which is also Ready Rifleman. So we're going to be working in the near future on building out those social media platforms, and also potentially other social media platforms. We have an account on X and Rumble and all the socials, but the starting point is Instagram, YouTube, and we'll build out from there. On that, big piece of advice. I know lots of other people have said this in what, when you're starting a business, what do you want to do? I know John Willis has said this a lot. If you have an idea for a business that you think you might start, go right now, today, buy the URL. It's like $20. Buy the URL, get the Gmail account for it, and get all of your social accounts. Get all of those locked down, because you might never do anything with them. And it was basically free. Most of those things are completely free, but you're not going to do anything without those accounts, or you're going to start doing things and then you're going to realize, oh man, I really should have bought, I really should have bought my URL before I put all this work in, because now somebody else owns it and I'm going to have to change my plans or pay them a lot more money to lock that down. So that's a great piece of starting advice that I've heard and wanted to share.
That's absolutely true. I've bought 2 domain names this year for businesses I'm interested in doing, related to all my stuff, because I'll never get them again if I announce it and somebody else buys it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's $20.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's $15. Sometimes you get them for $1.99. It just depends on the day you have the thought.
Yeah. Normally you can get like the first year for like $2 or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well worth it. Well worth it. And honestly, if you're not willing to invest $20 in the idea to start off, you weren't going to do anything with it anyways.
Yep. Yeah, and don't let the fear of regulation and the other things stop you from starting to make the thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Eric and I were talking about how selling to different states and collecting the sales tax in different states, like how that works, which is an enormous pain in the ass. But that hasn't stopped him from figuring out, I can go on Etsy and that's just all done for me, first of all, which is nice about Etsy, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it hasn't stopped him from making cool products and starting to sell them. You don't have a problem with paying sales tax in Colorado until you sell to somebody in Colorado. Mm-hmm. So then you just don't worry about it until you have to worry about it. Anyway, well, thanks for being on the show today, Eric.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Awesome, folks. Well, I hope you got a lot out of that, guys, and I hope to see Eric on here again. If you like this show and want to support the work I'm doing here, you can do it in 2 ways. 1, get your coffee, of course, at hollowroast.com. 2, consider becoming a member. With that, go out, make it a great week.